Eva Marie and I have been hoofing it. May I just say that? But we are back and we have a guest. I'm calling this session, and probably change, Readin, Writin, and Southern Wit. We're just going to call it all kind of stuff. It's affiliated with our Southern Mamas Be Like. Cindy Sproles is our guest. She's an incredible author. And of course, y'all all know Eva Marie is an incredible author. But we're just going to chat about mama's stories, what we love to write about, what we don't like to write about, what we're trying to write about. So it's going to be fun. Eva Marie, darling.
Oh,
hey,
it's been a while. It's been a long while.
Look, we match.
Oh, we do. Yes.
As my daughter would say, Mama, you snatch. Look at the back.
I gotta tell you something. I when I found this blouse in Dillard's, I think I was in Dillard's when I found this blouse. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had something a lot like this when I was like 6. I mean, I just remember the springtime or the summer floral print. So everything does really come back around. I have decided.
Well, you know what I do anymore? I look at the pattern and then I look at the instructions. And if it's, you have to wash by hand and lay out flat for 6 days and pray over it and all that, it goes back on the hanger. I'm done with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Turn it inside out, wash by hand. Yes.
Don't look at
never do it on a day that ends in Y. That's the one that really so
there you go. I'm with you. We're gonna bring in Cindy. This is fun. Hello.
Hey, girls. There she is, all the way from Tennessee.
Listen, I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness. I'm just y'all are.
We do.
I really am.
Well, listen now. Wait a minute, because you were Miss South Carolina.
That's about it.
Miss America. You got that little wave down. You know. Yeah.
Yes. We just had Pageant World. That was fun.
You did. You strutted your stuff in a bathing suit, I bet.
I did way back. So now I wrote a song about it, and it's Spanx for the Memories. All right, let's get to it.
Did you sing that on stage? That's the question.
Do what?
Did you sing it on stage? That's the question.
I sang something.
Oh Lord, yeah. There will be no strutting or studying. No.
Well, I can't wait for everybody to meet Cindy. They probably already know Cindy because Cindy is like I said, y'all are like rock stars to me. I'm telling
you. No. I think we're all just Southern girls. That's what we are, you know. And the thing is that makes us sisters. But Cindy is a dear friend. She is also a Southern daughter. She's a Southern mama. And so we're going to talk about Southern daughters and mamas and writing and all of that fun stuff because Cindy has done some pretty powerful works, and she has won lots of awards. She writes out of the Appalachians. We're going to talk to her about that more later. But first, we want to talk to her about her Southern mama before we get into even her being a Southern mama. First of all, Cindy, this is really amazing. And I happen to know this personally. Your mama is still alive.
My mama will be 99 next month. And she has no filter anymore.
Yeah, 99.
All of the Southern pleasantries have gone. She's lost all that.
Like Cindy. But here's the amazing thing, everybody, because I happen to know this, and you're thinking 99 years old, she's probably just lying in a bed, covered up to her nose hairs with a blanket. But no. Your mother is still making award-winning quilts.
She is. She turns out a queen-size quilt every other month.
Yes.
And they're, she sews the backs together on the sewing machine, pieces them together. But then she hand quilts them. So that's her. That's her thing.
And babe, I tell you should see them. Yeah. If you go to Cindy's Facebook page, sometimes you post them, and they're just gorgeous.
We have about quilts, and I'm on 20 or 25 wall hangings that I don't know what we'll do with all of them.
Well, like I said, I think you ought to have a sale. Let me put them on the. I mean, let me tell you, you could never ever find that in a store. You just can't. That is the handwork is that's it right there, and it's going to be a lost art. I think within the next 50 years, it's going to be a lost art.
Oh yeah,
and it truly is an art.
She gets all tore up at quilt shows because she still hand quilts, and there's not very many people at all that hand quilt anymore. They do long arm on the machine, and she just gets all bent out of shape. That's not
just not the same as. That's just not the same as. No. So first of all, let me ask you this, because we all call our mamas by something different. What do you call your mother?
Well, for the most
you're
part,
being nice.
For the most part, I call her Mama. But when I was growing up, we had a next door neighbor that called her Bernie. Her name was Velma Bernice, and so when I want to get under her skin, I call her Bernie. But for the most part, I call her Mama.
But I called my mother as I got older. Now, Mama, I think, as a young child. But yeah, we all seem to call our mamas by something different. So how about this, Cindy? How do you spell it?
M-O-M-M-A, Mama.
Okay, well, you're in the Jane camp. You're in the Jane, because I'm an M-A-M-A person.
Oh, are you?
It's 2 against 1. We're in trouble now. All right, so tell us though a little bit about your Southern mama.
She's great. I mean, she was an awesome Girl Scout leader, and she taught me how to be innovative, and never quit. Which that worked with my son. That we have a son that has a learning disability, has mental retardation, and so that worked over into him to help him, do fine. But she's been a great mama. We have our moments, don't we? All daughters have moments with our mama.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and then at 99, she's to the point where there are some things that are frustrating with her. And the fact that the frustrating thing with her is that she has lost that Southern filter she's always had. So things just kind of fall out of her mouth.
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate to have her and talk to her almost every day, and go over to the assisted living 2 or 3 times a week. She's in assisted living. So we're fortunate to have her.
Jane and I actually met over our mamas. She was at the Blue Ridge Conference, and that was the year that Mama was there with my mother was there with me. And Jane approached my mother and said, "I just lost my mom, and I just see this relationship that the two of you have." And then my mother introduced me to Jane, and we just became friends. And then that was the Blue Ridge Conference where my mother passed away while we were at the conference. So, Jane just, she just reached out to me after all of that. And so really in a very funny way, our mamas brought us together.
Yeah. I remember when I walked in and I kept telling myself, don't be pitiful. And that lasted for about 3 minutes. And I do that even now when I see a mother and a daughter together. I'll say, I just love this. Thank you. You're bringing back such sweet memories. So I loved your mama, even though I knew her I just felt like I knew her because she was just that kind of person. Eva Marie
was.
Yeah. Tell me about your family as a Southern mama.
Well, both my boys were born in Charleston, so can't get much Southern than that. I have 2 boys of my own, and I have 2 stepchildren through my husband. But our boys both sets of boys are 15 months apart. Then when you put them together, our 2 oldest are 6 months apart. Our 2 babies are 3 days apart. So it was like having 2 sets of twins. But they've all grown up to be good men. What else could you do but pray that they just grow up to be good men? And all but one, which my Chase will probably never marry, but the other 3 are finally married. We didn't think that was ever going to happen. We actually have 2 grandchildren, which we most definitely had given up on.
So let me ask you this question, because you are a writer. At what age did you feel called to write? Oh,
I don't know if it was called to write or if it was just the love of doing it. I think I was thinking about that. I don't think I was just a little kid. I think probably around 6 or 7. But you have to understand, we lived up on the top of a mountain, and there was nobody else around. My brother's 12 years older than me. Mm-hmm. So when I was a child, my brother was getting ready to get married, and so I really didn't have anybody to play with except me, you know. So I think
and
that's
imaginary friends.
Yeah, I was my own best friend. I had a little friend called Cindy K. Hink. My brother still teases me about Cindy K. Hink, but she was my buddy. So
I had Charlotte. Did you Jane? Did you have a imaginary friend?
Yeah, I did. I had 2. They were their hands. This is Tippus and this is Bippus. Maybe this is Tippus and this is Bippus. I get them confused because they look just alike.
They're twins.
They're twins. Tippus and Bippus. My children always tease me about Tippus and Bippus.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about your writing journey, Cindy.
I'm sorry.
Tell us a little bit more about your writing journey.
Well, I've always written stories and things like that from the time I was a little kid, but I didn't really. I was one of those when I went to high school. You know, you get that one opportunity to talk to your guidance counselor when you're a senior in high school. The one time. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I kind of think I'd like to be a writer. And he reared back and laughed and said, well, you need to find something where you can make some money. First of all, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I was like, okay. Well, you see, I was just naive enough to think, okay, well, that's not something I need to do. But then, it sticks with you when you write. So I waited till I was, after my boys were juniors and seniors in high school, before I really went to my first conference and started to say, this is what I want to do for a living. I've grown up now. I want to be, this is what I want to be when I grow up.
I'm a big girl.
Yeah. So I've always written, I wrote children's stuff, and I didn't know how to write it, but I was writing little plays and little stories. I wrote stories in high school. One that got published actually when I was in high school in a little magazine through Christian Standard called Straight Magazine. And I remember they paid me $25, and I thought, holy cow, I might get paid that much now if I'm lucky. So I cleaned out my mom's house a couple of years ago. I actually found a copy of that she'd kept. So still have it.
I love that.
I got 7 years ago. So it's been a long road, but.
How about your last published work? And I know you and I chatted before we started about what you're working on now, but tell us about your last book and then the project now.
The last book that came out last year was called Coal Black Lives, like coal as in the coal mine, because that's what it was about, the coal mines. We only live about 13 miles from where the coal mines start. And my boss that I worked for 20 years actually was raised, well, he married into the coal company family, and he was a part of that for years. So that was kind of where the inspiration from that story came from. It came out last year. And then the next one is called The Eyes of River, which I just found out today. They approved the title. They're going to leave it alone. And so it comes out sometime spring or summer next year. They haven't told me the exact publication date yet. He was a little luckier on that one than I was. So we're still waiting to find out the publication date on it. But
well, just the process of novel writing as a nonfiction writer blows my mind. And then I have a friend who is with Kriegel. Her stuff will come out, Devotion. And she struggled with nonfiction. So they've got a real gift there, let me just tell you.
Yeah, I always say there's a method to the madness. Yep. You just got to know what the method is, and then try not to go mad while you're doing it. Because I'm telling you, it's enough to make you go crazy and to doubt everything you ever knew was true. So, Cindy, you predominantly write about Appalachia. I mean, obviously, you've got some books out that are devotion-filled devotionals. and you've written some other things like that, but you have really hit your stride with writing about in fictionalizing Appalachia. What do you find to be the most difficult thing about writing about a topic that you know well?
Yeah. I think the most difficult thing writing it is to keep a balance in, because I love to write. I like to write true to the nature of the beast, which is, we got that dialect going on here, and so, finding the balance in that, because I could just sit down and write the whole thing just like it is in my head. And I don't think people above the Mason-Dixon line would understand it.
Never understand a word of it.
So got to,
the translation.
Back up a few steps and make them understand, exactly what it is. So I think finding that balance, that readers all over the country or out of the country can understand, because we do have our own dialect and our own customs and phrases. We got some good phrases up here in the mountains.
So I want to hear one of them. Just give me a good one. I like those.
One.
One, and I think I even said this to Eva when I won a Salo award, was, well, slap my knee and call me corn pone. I'm surprised about that. Again? Slap my knee and call me corn pone. My grandmother used to say that all the time. And but I still love the slap me thing, because it was forever around here when I would say to my boys, I'm gonna smack you so hard, you'll bring it back to your head.
It's funny because we do. I mean, Southern mamas, we have these things that we say that, of course, maybe if some people heard them, they would think, call DCF or whatever. Because I remember saying, I'm going to hang you up by your toenails until you're dry.
Made the point, didn't it? It made the point.
This is not literal, but yeah, it sounds terrifying. I hope.
It better. I mean, Mama would always say, knock you into tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think it might not be grew up warped, but
yeah. Well, what about if you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yeah. So there was lots of times I wanted to say that in the grocery store recently. Shut up! I'm going to cry about. Tell that kid.
I just said that to my 37-year-old about an hour ago. So yeah, it's still relevant today. So
yes, but I think the problem, Cindy, is that it's not your child that you were thinking about, right? I don't have the patience for it anymore.
No, I'm not good at parenting today.
Well, Cindy, you talked about the little challenges in like writing the dialect or the way the folks in your area speak. How about the easiest? I mean, what makes your hands just glide across the keyboard?
Oh, I think it's the heart. It's the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, because there is a rich culture here, and a very faithful culture. So, your friends are your friends here, and they're not just your friends; they're your family. Well, probably literally at times, but for the most part, they're like family. And so I think the easy part for me is writing the heart of the people here.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because it's so very, very true in the South. If we're not related by blood, we're related by marriage. I mean, it doesn't take long to find that connector, It's like I was doing some family research on, my paternal side of the family, and there was a particular name that came up that was extremely familiar to me, and it's a name that is pretty distinct. I thought, wait a minute, why do I know that name? And I realized it was also on my mama's side. So, because she had a lot of children, and then they started marrying, and pretty soon it all got connected. And so
that makes the whole Adam and Eve thing,
Yeah, people don't understand. Southern trees don't work, They just...
Well, my granddaddy always said that, because we're on Johns Island outside of Charleston. there was nothing to connect us to James Island or to the peninsula of Charleston. And so our family dated and married each other, which explains why the family tree is a wreath. And it also lent to the fact that for entertainment on Sundays, and people don't get this, we went to sit and visit with kinfolk because that was it. You just, you know, you didn't cut on Netflix or on your black and white TV with the tin foil and the rabbit ears. You jumped in the car and went down and in my world, went to see Wee Wee and Fanny. One was cousin Wee Wee and one was Aunt Fanny, and they were sisters. I still don't know why one was cousin and one was aunt, but that's the kind of thing you're talking about, really.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, if you've ever read Cold Sassy Tree by Olive Burns, and it's cousin this, cousin that, cousin this, aunt this, uncle that, you know, just but yet sometimes they weren't even your cousins and they weren't your aunts and uncles either, you know, but we did the same thing. Cindy, you probably did too. I mean, on Sundays, we went to the home that was my great grandparents, and my great aunt and great uncle still live there. This spread of food, like you would not believe. And then they left it out on the table, covered it up with plates, and then you got hungry later on. You just went back and got yes, get the flies out of the way. Yes, I mean this was the way of it, and you just went back in and got a plate and fixed yourself. You didn't have a microwave. You ate a cold supper.
Yeah, and you know one of the things I've enjoyed when people ask me about where I grew up is that you're right. Like I said, my mom was one of 7, and so when we went to my grandmother's, we helped plant the garden. We helped plant the tobacco, and then we all reaped it at the end of the year. So every Saturday, one Saturday we were doing green beans, the next Saturday we were creaming corn. You know, it's like but it was the entire family. One Saturday we're making apple butter. You know, it was the entire family. And at the time you think, oh, I don't want to do this again. But now I look back and say, well, that's kind of where I learned my storytelling, because my mom had 2 brothers that, you know, it was like a battle every week, see who could outtell the other one, you know, and those are the things that you remember.
Southerners are about story, and we have passed them on generation to generation to generation.
And I don't think if it were for that, and that's one reason I write Appalachian historical, because they don't teach this stuff in school anymore. You know, my grandchildren are growing up not having any idea of what the Appalachians and the people of Appalachia had on the movement out west. You know, so my grandmother actually rode in a wagon that followed the Indians on the Trail of Tears. You know, and they don't know what that is. They have no clue what the Trail of Tears is. No, I think one of the people that I love to read her stories is Toni Morrison, and she's not even in a Christian market. You know, she's general market, but the very first story that I read of her was a book called Song of Solomon, and it was about the slaves in the South, and I actually came home from work one night and turned on the television, and she was on Oprah's book club, and she read from her book Song of Solomon, and it was like that deep, sultry Southern that it dug into me, and it's like that's what I want to write. You know, that's what I want to write. So I think for me, she's probably my number one person I love to read. I love to read Maya Angelou. I mean, you know, I just love her stuff too. And
and not to misuse this word, there's a romantic quality to their writing. Does that make sense? I'm not talking about romance like kissy kissy. There's just something romantically beautiful about their word choices and their turn of phrase.
Yeah. And then I guess my number 3 person is, you know, I like Francine Rivers, and maybe that's where I got my ability to write hard from. You know, it was her, because she writes hard stories too. You know, But
Well, and that brings me to a point, Cindy, because you're, Appalachian, and I think the very first Appalachian book I ever read was Christie.
and actually, that was when I did my research. I found out that Christie was really the last quote unquote Appalachian historical that was written in the 1980s, and there was then the trend changed, and there were no more until Mercy's Reign came out. And when
And
Mercy's
that was
Reign
written by
came out,
Cindy Sproles.
yeah, it rebooted that whole. People have forgotten about it. Not that I'm I'm such a famous writer, but it was just that I stuck to that genre, and it had not been a genre that had been touched in years. So when they were shopping my work, everybody go, "I love this book, I love it," but where do we put it on the shelf? There was no place for it.
I had the same situation with, it's like I'm writing Southern fiction, and it was like, well, but it's not Eugenia Price, and it's not Margaret Mitchell, and it doesn't have to be set during the Civil War to be Southern fiction,
Right.
I have a question for both of y'all. Where do you get your ideas from? This isn't on the list of a Cindy question.
No, that's a great question.
I want to know what is it that does that?
Oh, you're asking me to go first?
Yeah.
I just am of the school of thought that there's a story everywhere you look. And so when you walk around here and you talk to people, especially I worked for a company called Comfort Keepers for 21 years. And Comfort Keepers puts their elder care, put caregivers in the home of the elderly. So for me, water, it was everything I could do to go sit down and talk to these people and, and get their memories and their thoughts and just one, to give you one memory and it can spark an entire story, so I get a lot of my things from just talking to people and just visiting, the mountains, the area. I love to go to Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and into the Smoky Mountains. There's a place there called, called Kate's Cove. And it's this 13-mile loop of just like stepping back in history. So lots of things like that. It's fun to go to those places and just let your imagination. I wonder what happened here. And I don't know about Eva, but I can see someplace like that and my eyes start going, ee! And I can see little people. And
all I have to do is hear something and it takes you back to a memory. And predominantly, lately I have been writing out of the 60s and the 70s and, the South. And it turned a lot in between the 60s and the 70s. It changed a lot during that time period. But Southern people were still Southern people. There's a story there. There's always story within that. And sometimes I hear a song and I'm just, immediately taken back to a time in my own past growing up in the South. And that's all it takes.
Ask me.
Oh, okay.
So because you've written, and listen, I absolutely love the title of your book about your mama. You've written nonfiction about being in the South.
So can I tell you my newest thing? I'm not trying to take away from you, Cindy, I promise.
Yeah.
But this just happened. Okay, so here's how I get my stories. I was flying back from Wisconsin from a speaking engagement set by a young, I'll do the clip notes, young couple, cute baby. I know to try to help them with the baby because the baby can make the whole plane miserable, right? So they were real sweet and they were real free spirit, kind of young hippies. And they said, hey, we manufacture these products. We'll send you a bag. I said, yay, thank you, so sweet. Didn't think another thing. A couple of years later, I get this bag in the mail. It's so hot, I just grabbed it and put it in my pocketbook and went to the church circle meeting. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we do the devotion. And one of my friends, Tara, says, I can't take any more painkillers. They're just ripping me up. And somebody said, I've got the worst headache. They were talking about ailments. I said, I've got these all natural things. And so everybody in the mail. I didn't read the label, but I can tell you about 20 minutes later, all the snacks were gone off the table. Like, I've never seen that before. And we started cutting prayer blankets, and I could see the lines were going this way and this way. I thought, oh my gosh. And I looked in the bag and it said THC.
Oh no, I knew you were going to say that.
So we call that wacky tobacco.
Oh my gosh.
We call that wacky tobacco.
Yeah,
that wacky tobacco. Yeah.
Circle didn't make, so that's where I get my stories from now. I will tell that, and they won't speak to me for about a month. I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's good too. That's good too.
I didn't even think about it. I was going, here, take this, take this. I was just giving them out like mints. So anyway.
Didn't even look.
But then I thought,
there's that funny stuff.
But I got a verse of scripture, always go back to, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but you better read the label. So that's how I get my stories. I didn't mean to hijack it, but that just happened.
No, that's so funny. And that is just so typical. I mean, you were at a circle meeting. I bet there are people out there that don't even know what a circle meeting is.
I know. I'm thinking that too. Do they even know what a circle meeting is?
Yeah, there's people out there that don't know, but we know. We grew up in the South.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, Jane, you get the next question.
Yeah,
that's Miss Cindy.
Yeah, I want to know, Cindy, what's your favorite thing to cook? Your favorite dish, and what's your least favorite?
Let's start with the least favorite. Anything liver, chicken liver, beef. No, nothing like that. It does not come through the door of my house except to make dog food. And my favorite thing is chicken and dumplings. I love chicken and dumplings.
Yeah.
Do you get the dumplings, or do you get Bisquick and throw it in the?
No, I make them.
Oh, girl, go on.
You know,
you know what? We're going to have to get your recipe, Cindy. We can add that. You know, people can. Yes, we got to get the recipe because chicken and dumplings. That's a great Southern recipe right there. That's comfort food. Yeah. Well, when I do cook, I'm a baker. I love to bake, and in fact, just a couple of weekends ago, my husband said I could really stand one of your pound cakes right now. So I got up, went to the kitchen, and it's a homemade. I mean, it is not from a box. It is all homemade. And I have to tell you, this is a funny story. I went to get the bundt pan out of the cabinet, and my husband had used my bundt pan to make barbecued chicken wings. He found a recipe. You just throw the wings in the bundt pan, add the barbecue, put it in the oven, and bake. And they were very, very good. But I didn't realize that that's what he had used until I could still see some of, like, bundt pans. After a while, they kind of get some creases and crevices in them, and there was barbecue sauce, and it was just baked in. Well, I can't put the batter of my pound cake in that bundt pan. So I had to grab just a loaf pan and or a sheet pan, and I made it in that. But of course, that changed the whole baking thing because it goes from this tall to this tall.
Becca Ravel did a book, came out last year. It was recipes of, a lot of the writers that did it. And she said, what do you like? And I told her chicken and dumplings. And then I also told her biscuits and gravy. And she said, oh, well, let's have the recipe for biscuits. And I thought, well, that's not hard. But then I realized, oh, wait a minute. I stick my hand in the Crisco jar and, there's that much.
Yeah.
And I do
I'm
this
slapping.
with my
Slapping the
flour.
Crisco. Yeah.
Yeah. I make my own buttermilk when I need it, and pour my buttermilk in there. So it's like, I don't think I can explain to somebody how to make biscuits and gravy.
And I am definitely more of the, I do all the cooking on Thanksgiving, that kind of thing. And I bring out all the old recipes. It's a lot of fun. But Cindy, do you have a favorite Southern saying?
Well,
that you can repeat on the air?
That was a little bit too long of a pause.
I'm going to repeat it. I just grew up with my grandmother saying, I love you just like butter on bread.
Oh,
Uh, and I just always remember that, I love you like butter on bread.
I love it. I
Oh,
love it.
That was a good thing. Butter and bread. So
Butter and bread.
yeah.
That's Southern to me.
that's very sweet. And you know what's sad? A lot of young people don't have that.
Mhm.
They don't have that favorite expression or, anything like that. So it's just good to have those memories that you can share with your children too, and they'll pass it. I'm hearing my children say things that I say to them, which warms my heart. And then they'll say, Mama, you said that. And I'll say, I did not. And I know I did. I'm trying to defend my honor.
Funny.
Well, I got a question for both of y'all, because I know, Cindy, you're our guest. You're our special guest, but I want to pick y'all's brains on this. So, and I'm gonna let you Marie close out with how do our viewers find you. But I have a question. How do you have the courage to put from here and here to here? How do you always second guess yourself? Do you say, this is not working, or why am I doing this, or I don't know if I can do this, or I'm so excited to do what do you go through mentally?
I don't know if I can ever do this again.
Yeah, that's more like it. I don't know if I can ever do it again.
It takes courage. It takes courage to do what you do.
Yeah, I've never thought of it as courage. I've just thought of it as something I'm meant to do. I never thought of it as courage. Sometimes the things I put on the page, I know the average person wouldn't write, and the hardship of it. But so I think the thing that's scary for me sometimes is writing the truth. And because that's the one thing I think when I do write these stories is I don't want them to come across cheesy, and I don't want them to come across cliche. I want people to see the truth. I want them to see the truth in abuse, and and the truth in the lies that we tell ourselves, and we believe those kind of things. So I think it's not so much courage for me is because that's just what I have to do. It's after it hits the page, and you go back and read it and you think, oh, well, I wonder how that's going to fly, But that is the one thing I think when I get feedback from readers is that they appreciate that. My stories don't always end the way you think they ought to end, but I think they end satisfactorily. Because that's the way life is. God doesn't promise us that when we pray, we're going to get what we pray for. We're going to get something because he answers our prayers, but it may not be what we've asked for. But most of the time, our life ends, our prayers and the answers to our prayers aren't exactly, but they're satisfactory. Oh, I can live with that. I can live with that. It's not what I wanted, but I can live with that.
How about you, Eva Marie?
I'm sorry.
I was asking.
No. It does take courage in that you are being courageous enough to tell the truth. If you like you were talking about, Cindy, the way of the Appalachians was very difficult. My people coming from Scotland and Ireland, many of them went into the hills of Appalachia simply because that was so much like Scotland, and the hills bore out a very hard life. And then the other part of it is this, for Southern readers and writers and people who live in the South, every area of the United States, in fact, I think every area of the world, has had its share of difficulties and heartaches. But the South has had its fair share. And we have bits and pieces to our history that we would just as soon pretend never happened, and yet they did. And so the thing is that sometimes in an effort to tell the truth of it, we are told that we have to write around the truth. And that to me is unfair and it's not right. It has to be what it was, or it's not history. It's a fairy tale. this very romantic side to the South, and then there is this very difficult side to our history.
Do you ever, an honest moment, when you see someone's written a book about the Appalachians or the South, and they're not from there, do you go, seriously? And you haven't read it, but does it kind of raise up your temperature a little bit?
Yeah, and I've coached some people who are trying to write Appalachian historical, and I finally came back and said, you know what, you just don't need to write that. Just don't. You're better off to write it straight than to try to write it and miss it by a million.
How about you, Eve Marie? Do you ever get bristled when somebody's written a book about being in the South and they ain't from the South?
Oh yeah, and it's not even that they're not from the South, because some people are not from the South, but they came during the summers to visit grandma, things like that. So they fell in love with the Southern way of life and Southern culture and Southern people, and they've got Southern relatives. So I'm fine with that. What I don't appreciate is turning the South into something that it never was. The truth of the matter is I was a part of the desegregation of the South. I was one of those white kids that got bused, and I'm proud of that. And I'll tell you why I'm proud of that. It brought something that should have never happened to a close. Yes. But it took guts to do it. There were some difficulties, but for the most part, we were just kids, and we were just all going to school, and that changed the trajectory of the South, and it made it more homogenized and just really even a better place to live. Not that it was a horrible place to live, but it was a better place to live, and so I'm proud of that fact. Yeah. And sometimes I think that the hardship of that era gets overlooked, and people talk about, oh, how horrible things are and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Go talk to your great grandma or your grandma, and then come and talk to my generation. We'll tell you what it was like. Yeah. How different it was.
I'm not sure what book of reference that a lot of times editors use I guess it's fact checking. I don't know. But I've had them come back to me and say, oh, wait a minute, this didn't happen until this date and time. And I went, honey, I live here. It happened. Trust me. Trust me, it happened, and and it didn't happen that year. So I don't know where they come up with some of their fact checking things.
That's what I'm talking about. They're rewriting history, which makes it incorrect.
Yeah.
People want to change the facts to suit whatever it is that they believe.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it true. When you lived it,
Yeah. My grandmother used to say, the people's she would say it like this: people is trying to change history, and a people that don't got no history got no future.
That's right.
And it's like, oh,
well said.
Well spoken.
Wasn't it, Grandma? Hey, Cindy, tell our listeners how they can find you.
You can find me on my website, which is easy enough, www.cindysproles.com. And I have a blog that I put out once or twice a month called Predicaments and Situations. And so, you can get me there.
Good.
Excellent.
It's been really fun to pick y'all's brains. And I know we were supposed to pick Cindy, which I love. I think we did. Cindy, is there anything we left out that you want to share?
No, I think you did a good job.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
all right.
Y'all, thank you. I love this. Yeah, this is great. Thank you for your time. And excuse me for being selfish. I'm sitting here going like this. I'm amazed.
I tell you, I love me some Cindy Sproles.
Oh, wow. Thank y'all. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
All right. Until next time, everybody. Let's do our I was not Miss South Carolina way.
Or you can be like the queen and wave to yourself.